Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're doing our wrap-up video for the month of January. So let's start with the watch list. I don't really have too much to say, so let's just jump into it. So I finished watching Dan to Dan. I watched the last episode of the season, and I've been kind of rewatching kind of episodes here and there, just because I feel like I should have watched the whole thing in one go. And because of how I was watching it with my roommate as it came out week to week, I ended up consuming a lot of portions of it multiple times, right? And so I was thinking of kind of going from start to finish one last time to kind of really understand what I felt about it. And I mean, I really love it. So there really isn't too much to say about Dan to Dan that I haven't said before, but it was just phenomenal, very, very enjoyable. I quite liked it. So yeah. Then I watched Ted Lasso season 1. This is the second time I watched this season. I watched it with my roommate and my sister, and it was really fun. I really loved this season. I think the first season is definitely stronger than the second because I have seen most of the second season by now. I think we're on episode 8 of 10, right, for season 2. And the developments of the characters are pretty good in the second season, but it feels like it's kind of just going through the motions. It's not really developing like this desire that Ted has to really make characters better. It's kind of focusing on other ones, right? It's focusing on Roy, it's focusing on Rebecca, and I do like that. I think these characters are valuable and meaningful, but I feel just a tinge of like, I don't know, disappointment that Ted isn't more meaningful in the second season compared to in the first, right? But I don't know. I think it's kind of natural to progress away from the main character when the main character is like a very one-note but valuable kind of character, right? So I get it. It's just a bit disappointing for me. I hope that it comes back around for the last season. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Ted Lasso. They're nothing too exciting. I mean, I just really love the show. I find it to be really enjoyable and comforting and valuable, and it really helps you kind of understand that, hey, you can't be a positive, upbeat person, and you can have all of these problems happening too, right? And it also helps you kind of understand, like, even the best people, even the, like, people you least expect have issues, right? So be kind to one another, and I really appreciate that. I think it's very meaningful, right? Then I started watching Severance. We're nearly done with season 1 right now. Me and my roommate are watching it, and it's a really interesting show. I don't necessarily think that it's like the most exciting for me. I find myself intrigued with the concept, with the ideas, but I really sometimes feel like, okay, I have to pay attention completely to make sure I understand what's going on. But when I am paying full attention, I'm not fully engaged, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to describe. I'm not finding the work to be super engaging. I'm interested and intrigued, but at the same time, it almost feels like there's not enough going on for like how long the episodes are. And maybe that's just me not really being patient. I'm not really sure about that. If you have a different opinion on that, let me know. There are a few things that I find kind of weird about the show. Like, some of the characters that are introduced seem to not mean anything. Like, Rickon is useless, but he is a very annoying character when he's there. And the sister character for Mark has this connection with this other woman that doesn't seem to go anywhere, or feels like it's just wasting time in the episode, right? And the kind of initial kind of crux of the show, which is the PD character disappearing and dying, felt like that just kind of ended too quickly for my taste, right? There are things I quite like about the show. I think the kind of like dystopian workforce thing is really interesting. I like the fact that it almost seems like a religion built up to control these people, right? And as someone that finds that religion is not good, having kind of a show that shows me that, with religion being used in a context that is usually not religious, is very interesting. It kind of showcases that I'm right to me, right? It affirms my belief or something. And also, I just think it's funny. I just keep thinking that it's like a Mormon or like a Scientology thing, because that's just kind of how it feels. And my roommate always thinks it's like weird that I think that. But I just can't really express what it is. I think it's just like the weird devotion to this Kier character in Severance. Reminds me a lot of how I've heard like Mormons talk about Brigham Young and types of people like that. It's just really odd and weird. And I don't know. It's just, the show is immensely intriguing and also like not engaging enough for my taste in a weird way. I don't know. Maybe there's not enough explosions or something. Maybe I'm just someone that's very basic in their taste. I'm not really sure, but I think it's cool. Then we watched Nosferatu, the movie, the 2024 version with Lillian Depp, right? I think that's her name. And I liked it, I think. I didn't have anything bad to say about it, but there wasn't anything that I think is like super amazing about it. I remember watching Bram Stoker's Dracula, the one by Ford Coppola, I think, right? The one with not Johnny Depp, what's his name? Gary Oldman, right? And the two movies feel almost exactly the same. And I know that it's because Nosferatu is a German approximation of Dracula, and this version of Nosferatu is just a adaptation of the original, right? The one that was in black and white, and I think it was a silent film as well. And so there really isn't too much leeway, but the story and the execution feels very basic, very simple, very nearly exactly the same as the Bram Stoker's Dracula, and that is a bit boring to me because it's like, okay, I've seen this already. However, the visual style of the movie is very beautiful. I love the way that the shadows play kind of this interesting thing. There's this take where like a shadow hand goes across the city, and I thought that was awesome. So like visually it's very cool, and the Count Orlok is very interesting. I quite like him, but I didn't feel satisfied watching the movie, if that makes sense. Like when I watch a movie, I want something to happen to me, right? Like not like in the pretentious, oh, art has to be impactful kind of way. Just kind of like I want to be excited, or I want to be amazed, or I want to be amused. And with Nosferatu, I didn't really feel anything super interesting. I basically felt like contentment and the occasional like, oh, that looks cool kind of feelings, right? And that feels kind of like a waste in my opinion, because that's not what I was looking for out of Nosferatu. It wasn't really a scary movie, and it wasn't really like not a scary movie either. It had like the elements of horror, and it had that kind of like creepy gothic vibe, but it just never really gave me any emotions of fear or disgust or horror. It was all just very like, oh, okay, whatever. And I find that a bit disappointing, right? So yeah, finally, the last kind of thing that I've watched this month is Monarch: Legacy of Monsters. As you guys can tell, I have Apple TV now, so that's why I'm watching all of these kind of things. And with Monarch, I actually really enjoyed it. One, Anna Sawai is the main character. She's the girl from Shogun, and I love her. I think she's amazing. Her acting is wonderful. Her appearance is beautiful and all of this stuff. But I just like Godzilla, and I actually really enjoy the MonsterVerse thing of like creating this organization of people that are across the world looking to understand what the Titans are, right? And this basically functions as both the origin story of Monarch, because half of the show is in the past, in 1940s, and it also functions as the turning point for Monarch, where they become kind of like a force ostensibly for good, right? And that kind of situation is very interesting to me. I like it a lot. I think the past part of the story is way more interesting than the present part of the story, but that's just because I like that. And then there's a little bit more monsters going on in the past part of the story, right? And I just like the aesthetic of like 1940s military stuff, right? On the other hand, the modern stuff feels very dramatic, very kind of like telenovela, soap opera type stuff, and I actually really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. I like the idea of like these two siblings that didn't know the other existed, suddenly meeting in a weird way and having to deal with what that entails, right? At the same time, through Kentaro, the male character that's supposed to be brothers with Anna Sawai, we meet this character called Mei, and her story is very unnecessary to me. Like, I don't care about this character. The way that she is supposed to like have a relationship with Kentaro, and then it turns out that she doesn't really, and then she kind of just like falls in love with Anna, or Anna Sawai's character. I can't remember her name. I think it's Kate. She falls in love with Kate, but not really. But then they do. I don't know, dude. Just the function of that character felt very much like, oh, we need to figure out a way to create Apex so that we can have the origin story implied for Mechagodzilla for one of the, I think it was a Godzilla King of the Monsters, right? When he fights Rodan and stuff, and Ghidorah. Like, since that needs to exist, they need to find a way to make it work in this show. And so they had to create the character of Mei, and then they needed a character that would help them do something. And so they just kind of kept piling up all of these like redundant kind of like plot element things onto this character. And so we end up with this character that is very functional, but very unappealing in terms of like the story. Like, I don't care about this character. I don't have any problem with the actress. I think she did a pretty good job with it. And there were some moments where she was pretty interesting, right? But broadly speaking, I feel like there's like a whole episode dedicated to deviating into her storyline that was very unnecessary. That could have been spent on Godzilla or on, any other kind of monster character, or developing the relationship between Kentaro and Kate better, right? And so that's kind of the only kind of bit of criticism I have for the show. Otherwise, I think it's broadly speaking perfect. So yeah, those are all of my thoughts on the stuff that I watched this month. Let me reset here, and then I'll come back for the reading section. So I'll be right back. Okay, so let's get started with the reading section of this. So let's start with novels first, or books actually. So in the nonfiction department, I have UFOs, the generals, pilots, and government officials go on the record. And this is by Leslie Kean, or Kane, I guess. And this is very interesting. It's very cool. I'm reading this because I've been really into the UFO kind of topic for the last year or so. And, well, I mean, I've always been into it. But in the last year or so, there's been some very interesting, valuable developments, right? Maybe more so than a year, almost two, I think, at this point. The U.S. government had these hearings. People that were pretty high up in the military in some capacity said that there have been recovered craft, there have been biological bodies found that are non-human, and there's this whole kind of like conspiracy theory around the fact that maybe humans have been in contact with these non-human entities for a long time. I don't necessarily believe that, but I just find the concept very fascinating and interesting, and so I want to read more about it. And this is kind of like the reason why a lot of that happened. In 2017, this lady, Leslie Kean, created or wrote this article detailing a lot of the situations that had been plaguing the U.S. government when it comes to UFOs and stuff, right? All the way since Roswell, back in the 1950s, I think, and stuff like that. And all of that research actually was so much that she couldn't put in the article that she created this book instead. And so this book is kind of detailing all that stuff. I'm kind of 50 or so pages into it. I didn't really read too much of it in the last couple of weeks, but I have read enough to really enjoy myself. So I'm quite happy with that. Hopefully we'll finish this by the end of this quarter, but who knows? I end up kind of mood reading most of the time, so it's kind of unclear what I'll actually get around to reading, right? So besides that, I read Cradle number 8 on the 1st of January. That was Winter Steel. Within the next couple days, I finished Bloodlines, which is book 9, and the reason I don't have those physically is because I own them digitally on Kindle. Then I finished reading Werebear Barbarian King recently. On the last couple days, I was in class, and I was bored out of my fucking mind because my professor was talking about stuff that wasn't really important to the lecture. He was just kind of going off on a side tangent due to a question that someone asked that had very little relevance to the topic. And so I booted up my book funnel and I started reading Werebear Barbarian King, and I quite enjoyed it. I finished it since I had already started it over winter break, and I'll have a review for that relatively soon here. I'm not really sure when exactly, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks, because I have quite a few book reviews and kind of book related content that I need to get around to. So yeah, we'll see about that as it kind of starts happening. So let's see, otherwise I think the only other thing that's left to talk about in terms of books, besides Cradle, which I loved. I've already kind of read mostly through these books before, because I kind of just skipped sections here and there as I was kind of skimming through them earlier on. And then this time I was reading them again to kind of finally review them on the channel. So not much to say about that. Cradle's awesome. And I'll do like 40-minute reviews on them, so I'll eventually get around to talk about everything I feel about these books. In terms of Werebear Barbarian King, I liked it a lot. I think that this is the first Eric Val book that I read. And Eric Val is a pretty well-known harem lit author. He has a lot of series. I think it's supposed to be the name of a content farm, right? Eric Val is not a single writer. It's quite a few writers that all together kind of function as this person, right? At least that's what my understanding is. I'm not really sure. And so Werebear Barbarian King is one of the first books that I read by them. Actually, the first book that I read by them. And I enjoy the world building. I enjoy the character work. I was pretty disturbed by the fact that it was a first person book. I'm not a fan of that. I prefer, third person, especially with stuff like this, because I understand the idea of it being first person, which is like it allows the reader to see themselves as the protagonist, which in a power fantasy is very valuable. At the same time, I personally, and I know that this is probably weird for a harem-lit reader, I'm not interested in being the character, because most of the time the character, or like I'm not interested in aids to me thinking of myself as a character, because most of the time these characters are so bland that it doesn't really make too much of a difference. And then they would do things that I would not do personally either way. So it being in first person and then them doing stuff that I wouldn't be interested in doing means that that immersion's broken anyways. So I would just prefer everything to be in third person, just because I just like that kind of reading style better, right? But I know that's weird. In the harem-lit sphere, like I'm probably one of the few people that thinks that everything should be third person instead of first person, but it is what it is. I don't know. It's not that big a deal. The cover art for this book is quite great. I like it a lot. I like the concept. It's basically this guy gets isekai'd into a land of magic where everyone on this island that he appears in is a shifter of some kind, right? They're not werewolves, but they could be. They're usually like animal human transforming characters, right? Like kind of like animorphs or something. They're Therian tropes. And since I was a big fan of the series called Wereworld growing up by Curtis Joplin, who I think is recently going to get a Netflix adaptation, I have been looking for books that are similar to that are for adults, that have that harem-lit aspect, that smut aspect, and I haven't had the best luck. Primogenitor Saga is immensely well written, but it doesn't have any smut in it at all. And the harem element is very mildly there, in the sense that the characters technically are together, but none of the relationship dynamics ever become relevant, right? So I was looking for something slightly different. This seemed to be the best next option. It turns out that it's pretty good. Not necessarily my favorite per se, but I do have 4 books of this series out of the 6 that are out so far, so I'll probably read the rest of them just because I already own them. And the first person thing, now that I'm used to it, is not that big of a deal. I'll get over it, right? So I will probably continue reading through this overall, right? And so the Werebear is the main character, and he is going to be the king of this barbarian island by the end of the series. So it's a kingdom building story, and it's pretty enjoyable. So yeah. Then we have Doc Savage. This is the book that I've been reading this month that has to do with old school pulp stuff. And this is The Man of Bronze, the first Doc Savage novel. This is by Kenneth Robinson, who is actually a pen name for a group of writers. I think that this was actually done by Lester something. I want to say Lester Dent, but I'm not sure if that's true. And it doesn't say anywhere. So yeah, but this is a pretty cool story. There's 130 pages here, 135 pages here, and I'm on page 60. So I'm nearly halfway through this book, and I'm actually really enjoying it. So I don't know anything about that Doc Savage, except the fact that he's a very interesting looking character. He's this man of bronze, basically. There's nothing metallic about him. He just looks bronze for whatever reason. I guess he's so tan that he looks that color, right? It's kind of like Tarzan, who has this very dusky kind of color to his skin, even though he's like a white guy. And he has 5 different sidekicks, and all of these sidekicks are good at stuff, but not nearly as good as Doc Savage. It's just that Doc Savage can't be everywhere all at once, and so he needs his sidekicks that are nearly as good as him at all of the different fields that are important, right? So he has a mechanic, a chemist, a fighter, a lawyer, and I can't remember the other one. I think an engineer, right? So he and his 5 buddies, as you guys can see right there, go on these adventures. This first one is introducing us to Doc Savage, or what's his name? Something Clark. Clark Savage, I think is his name. I can't remember. But it introduces us to him through the death of his father, who left him a massive tract of land in this, I think, fake country in Central America called Hidalgo. I'm guessing that's supposed to be kind of representative of Mexico, right? And I guess it's supposed to be south of Mexico, north of Guatemala, wherever that might be, because the Mayans are kind of important here. It really should have been the Olmecs, right? But I don't think people in the 1920s knew the difference, right? So it is what it is. And so he wants to go and find this tract of land so he can claim it, because his father said that he left them very valuable things there. And as they're trying to do this, they get sniped at by these red-tipped fingered Mayan people that somehow are able to use modern technology, and they try to assassinate Doc Savage. Then they run. Then Doc Savage catches them. The character dies, and so now they have to go to Washington. Their plane explodes on the way to Washington. They manage to get there safely. They get the visas and provisions necessary to go down to Hidalgo. They fly to Hidalgo. The plane gets shot down. They manage to make it to Hidalgo. And now they're embroiled in the social political atmosphere of Hidalgo. They're dealing with a bunch of Mayans that are trying to kill them. And they're trying to get the paperwork necessary back in their own hands so that they can actually use legal means to get this land given to Doc Savage, right? And it's a very interesting book. I actually really like it. I think that the dynamic between all the characters is great. I really enjoy the kind of non-stop, like, oh shit, something's happening literally on every page kind of feel of the book. It's very exciting, very comic book-esque, if that makes sense. The only kind of issues I have here and there are the kind of ridiculous and very unlikely scenarios that are like they're bad guys, right? Like these Mayans that have red fingertips because they were warrior class or whatever, and the concept of this country called Hidalgo, which I'm pretty sure never existed. I'm pretty sure it's just a fabrication for the book, and all of these concepts, right? And like, it's not really an issue of like, oh, I can't like disconnect from it. It just feels so ridiculous from like a modern perspective. It is just kind of something that isn't easy to overcome. It's kind of hard to really understand why it bothers me more than other things, right? And it doesn't really bother me all that much. It's just the first time I read it, I was like, oh, okay, this is that kind of book, right? It's like just so ridiculously dumb, right? and maybe it's just because I'm Mexican and I find like the way that it's done to be very inaccurate, and I don't necessarily mind like, you know, taking creative liberties with the concept. It's more like, at least pick the right version of the people, right? Like the right Mesoamerican culture, right? I guess the Mayans are technically correct, but in the concept or the context that they're using it's incorrect. It should be like the Olmecs or something else. And they use Kukulkan, which I think is actually correct. because I can't remember which tribe used which, right? There's the Aztecs and the Mayans, and one group used Quetzalcoatl and the other one used Kukulkan, but they meant the same thing, right? Because there's this very interesting concept that happens in south of the U.S., where a lot of the Native American populations of the rest of the Americas have these kind of main cultures that are all very similar across giant tracts of land, with like these key symbols that are all the same, right? It's kind of like how in Europe every pantheon had like a thunder god, and they were usually like the leader or next to the leader, right? Kind of that kind of idea. And they had like a sea god, and they were sometimes good, sometimes they were bad kind of concepts. But I don't know, it's just something about the way it's written, just kind of, I don't know, man. It's just kind of odd. I do like it. I think it's really fun. I just have to get over that kind of initial, like, oh God, you're using the wrong, like, you know, name for these people, right? Or whatever it is that it might be. Also because they were, the way that they were initially described was as yellow-skinned people. And what? Why would the Native Americans, like Mesoamericans, be yellow-skinned? That made no sense, right? I mean, no one is yellow-skinned, right? But usually yellow-skin implies like Asian people. And I guess that they thought that Native Americans from Central America were Asian. I'm not really sure. So I was very confused. I thought it was going to be like a thing with like Asian people, right? And it turns out that it was like Mexican Native Americans. And I was just very confused. So it's just kind of like a lot of weird little things like that just kind of soured my taste a little bit about the inclusion of the Maya characters. But at this point, I'm used to it, so I'm really enjoying myself reading through this book. It's just kind of odd to kind of look at it. It's like, oh, maybe this is what, you know, African American or Asian kind of American people feel when they see like stuff that relates to their like ethnic, cultures and backgrounds in like media, right? So it's just kind of not something that's common because most of the time Mexican stuff is very basic, and it's also, broadly speaking, pretty accurate, even if it is like prejudice or whatever. So it is what it is. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Doc Savage and all the books that I've read. Let's move on to comic books at this point. So let me reset here because I have to move things around, and then I'll come back to that. Okay, so let's start with our big stack of single issues here. So we have Conan the Barbarian number 17. I reread this. I loved it. I really enjoyed the artwork here. I know a lot of people didn't, actually, and I understand that because when it comes to Conan, you want some sort of like very badass, very kind of like rough looking art. And broadly speaking, the stuff here in 17 was very cutesy and very clean, right? The thing is that from my perspective, the story in this issue wasn't really about Conan, it was about Belit. And so it makes sense that it would have this kind of more beautiful, kind of less dirty, less macho kind of art style, because it's about Conan's memories of Belit, right? And those would be rose tinted, right? But I don't know. I didn't think it was bad. I just, it definitely has more of a Dacia Torres kind of vibe to it than it would like Conan, right? But it is what it is. I didn't really have an issue with it, but I know some people did. So it happens, I guess. Here's Heatseeker number 2. Not much to say about this one. I like the story. I think the coloring is kind of rough. The artwork isn't as high quality as the main story, but it's not bad. And I actually really like the covers here. I think they're very, very enjoyable. So broadly speaking, nothing to complain about. I know that due to Diamond, Titan has some difficulties getting stuff out. And so they did say that issue 3 of Heatseeker was going to be delayed indefinitely, basically. It says TBD on Comic League or League of Comic Geeks. And that's bad. So we'll see what happens there. But hopefully it's not too bad of an issue. Here we have Dark Knights of Steel All Winter number 6. This was great. I really enjoyed it. This was a great ending to the story. It kind of finished a bit too easily for my taste, right? But I think that usually happens anyways. Sometimes resolution for comic books just has to be quick, and it feels less satisfying than in novels because you kind of just move through it too fast, right? So it is what it is. But overall, it was really good. I liked it. I did a review for it, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it was pretty good. So, yeah. Yeah, Flash Gordon number 5, really awesome stuff. I'm really enjoying this series. I like the kind of issues that are being posed in this floppy, which is, you know, is our character Sarkov, friend of Flash Gordon, going to keep his metallic body that he has now, or will he eventually go back to his physical body? And it plays with his insecurities and his personal thoughts more so than it does with like the needs of the story, right? And I think that's good. I like that. I like the cover a lot as well, but it doesn't really showcase what happens in the story. So it is what it is. Green Lantern, Green Arrow, World's Finest Special. I don't know if this ties into the World's Finest. I just got it because I thought it'd be fun, and it was pretty fun. I actually quite liked it. I just love these, very green characters, right? I'm not really like in love with Hal Jordan or anything. I don't necessarily have like a preferred Green Lantern. Probably Jon Stewart, just because that's who I'm most familiar with from the cartoon. But I'll take any of them. I don't really care too much. I just don't like Guy Gardner. But I think that's pretty common across fans of Green Lantern, right? So, yeah, but not much to say about this one. Jeremy Adams did it, and I liked it. So, yeah, here we have Lilith, number 2 by Corin Howell. And this is a very interesting concept. I'm not necessarily sure I'm loving the execution, but I don't hate it. I will continue to buy it for now. And basically, it's like a new version of Vampirella, some new take on Vampirella, where this female character who is a vampire was ejected from her homeland, or her dimension, I guess you could call it, and she's been stuck in the human world forever, and she's trying to find a way back home. She suddenly runs into this young lady, this woman who's the same age as her, more or less, or appeared to be similar age. And this girl is a ditz and ridiculous and funny, very Aaron Solstice-esque from The Wandering Inn. And it turns out this girl has the book, and so Lilith now has to figure out a way to get the girl to give her the book, and also to translate it for her, because the girl can read it and Lilith can't for whatever reason. And so now they have to deal with this. And so we have this very like badass, angry, evil goth girl, and this very peppy, kind of like manic pixie girl type character on the other side. And you have to figure out how they're going to interact. And the artwork is pretty good. The coloring is pretty good. I really enjoy myself reading this. I just don't think it's like that exciting. And that's a bit disappointing, because when the initial kind of like run to get this release was happening, it seemed like it was going to be a very exciting story. And when I first read it and I was like, oh, this is just Vampirella again, that was a bit disappointing, right? So yeah, we'll see what happens here. Mostly I like the secondary character. I don't know her name, but she just reminds me of Aaron Solstice. And that's a good way to win my my adoration, right? So yeah, then we have The Moon is Following Us, number 4. Very interesting issue here. I think this is the one that had the crazy cliffhanger at the end, where we learned who the evil character is. And I thought it was really, really cool. But not much to say about that one, to be honest with you. So we have Ultimate Spider-Man number 12. Awesome stuff. I did a review for this. I actually really enjoy the idea of having this Christmas party be like the main attraction of this, because it feels like nothing's going on, and then wham, you get hit with the ending where it turns out that Peter has been gone for 2 months, and for those 2 months it's been the suit the whole time. And that's crazy, right? Like, that's very, very interesting. I really like it. I thought it was good. Here we have Wonder Woman number 16. I've seen some people on Twitter complain about the fact that Wonder Woman's run currently has too many male heroes in it helping her. And especially because in some other ones, some other stuff that's been happening with Wonder Woman, Batman has shown up at some point, and other characters like that. And I understand the idea. Wonder Woman is like the third pillar of DC or whatever, and she should have all of her stuff kind of happening. But at the same time, Wonder Woman is not like a misandrous character. Like, obviously she would get help from male characters when necessary, right? And in this case, she's giving birth to her daughter and taking care of her. Why would she be kind of hunting down the Monarch, right? And the whole idea of like Wonder Woman in this case, it's not that she's like stronger and smarter and better than everyone else. It's that she can coordinate with others in a way that other heroes maybe won't be able to, or maybe couldn't, right? And so I find that to be very valuable and meaningful. Like, wow, she's using her resources effectively and using her standing and her power to better herself and the world around her. Like, wow, that's amazing, right? That's good. I don't see why anyone complains about that. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just not understanding the complaints that people are having, right? So yeah, here we have Justice League Unlimited number 2. I'm loving this run. Actually, I like it a lot. I like how broad and kind of all over the place it is, and I love the artwork and I love the coloring, because I love Tamara Bonvillain and what's his name, Dan Moore. Both of them together are just phenomenal. Very, very good stuff. And Mark Waid's writing is great. I didn't realize that, but it's very enjoyable. Here's Rogue Sun number 24. Not much to say about this one. This is a jumping off point, so if you've been collecting this and you don't really want to get more of it, this is perfectly a good spot to kind of finish, because after this they're going to introduce a new Rogue Sun, who is what's his name, Dylan's half sister, and so through that there might be kind of like a Rogue Sun war, kind of like they had in the Radiant Black series, right? So you know, if you want to jump off, this might be your ticket out, right? So yeah, just keep that in mind as you go forward. And let's see. That's it for that. We have Vampirella Holiday 2024 special. The cover's cool. There was better covers. I think the Lincer cover was better, but you know, JLE is not that bad. And there's not much to say about this. It's not a great issue. It's not a horrible issue. It's just kind of like, why do I always pick up the Vampirella stuff and then realize I don't actually like it? It's just kind of how it goes. So Vampirella ends up going to the North Pole, and she realizes that everyone in the North Pole, except for Miss Claus and one of the elves, has been turned into a vampire. So she has to go vampire hunting. And there's some really cool scenes, right? Like there's this one where she has these 2 giant Gatling guns, and she goes and fights Santa Claus, and she dresses up in this like cool Santa Claus-esque outfit, and it was pretty, you know, sexy and stuff, but nothing too amazing. I think I just don't understand Vampirella properly, and I do have some of her original work, so I should probably go back and read that, and maybe I'll understand it better. But so far, it's just kind of like, okay, all of my exposure to Vampirella is like either really boring, very kind of like just slice of lifey, but in a way that isn't exciting or comfy, and or just kind of plain ridiculous, and it's just kind of not working for me. So I don't know, we'll see what happens there. And then we have Absolute Superman number 3. This is awesome. I don't pull this, I just kind of go into the store and hope that there is an issue, and that's just because it allows me to feel like I'm saving money if I don't have it on my pull list, where I see how much it costs every time, right? So I don't know, maybe I should just put it on my pull list, but I don't know, we'll see. I might have to make some changes there at some point, because I am getting to the point where I have like too many books every month, and it's just kind of difficult to balance. So we'll see. We have Aquaman number 1. Pretty good start to the series. It ends with a very interesting cliffhanger where we see this giant Omega symbol, which is for Darkseid and the Absolute Universe. So we'll see where it goes, but I don't know. I'm excited about the kaiju stuff that's going to happen eventually. It just hasn't happened yet, and so I'm just kind of chugging along, waiting for that moment. So hopefully it gets to us soon. We have Kill All Immortals number 5. This is pretty good. I actually really liked it, and I have a review for it on the channel, but there were some issues with this. First of all, the story was finished too fast. I think like it needed another issue or so to really finish up the emotional development of the characters to the right point for them to all turn on their father, right? To get that resolution that we got at the end. The introduction of Genghis Khan as another immortal was awesome. I liked that a lot. I think that's cool. But it really does feel like the originals, or like you know, stuff that spins out of the Vampire Diaries. And that's not a diss. That's just kind of like an understanding that I have of this series, because it has the same kind of vibes to it. And I don't dislike it. I think it's cool, and I actually find it to be enjoyable for that reason. But it feels like it might be something that will turn off certain kind of readers, right? Here's Transformers number 16. I really like this one. I thought it was a great issue. The only kind of problem, if you can call it that, is that I think that Sarah Stern's coloring is a bit too washed out compared to all the previous coloring by Mike Spicer, and that gives the story this feeling of like, I don't know what to call it, like melancholy or sadness, or maybe something kind of like sluggishness, that just because it doesn't feel like it should be happening for, you know, like all of the crazy action that Daniel Warren Johnson's writing. So I don't know, I maybe that's kind of a weird way of phrasing it, and maybe it's not really the case. I'm just maybe, you know, not understanding my feelings about the coloring properly. But this is just kind of the easiest way for me to describe what I'm feeling about it. I did like the issue either way. I think Dana Warren Johnson's writing is awesome. I like Jorge Corona's artwork a lot. It's just Sarah Stern just looks very different from Mike Spicer's coloring, and I think that that's a bit of a shame. I would have liked the whole run to look as similar as possible, even with all the art changes, right? But it is what it is. It's not a big deal. Here we have The Moon is Following Us number 5. This is the end of the first arc. I think there's going to be 2, so it should be 10 issues total. And this was great. I really, really liked it. There was this betrayal at the end of this issue that was very kind of expected in a way that I thought was great, very well handled, by a character that, you know, you kind of assume is just there to help, and he's kind of like this old mentor character, and then bam, he's actually not. He's just been playing them the whole time, and I thought that was awesome. We have Witchblade number 7. This is probably the most exciting issue of Witchblade so far. I think the first one was a huge bang, and I think the second or third one was pretty awesome too. And all of them have been quite good, but this one really ramped up the action. It introduces us to the darkness. It introduces us to all of the other relic holders, even though we don't know their names or what relics they hold. And it really makes Sarah have to deal with the fact that, hey, the Witchblade is a thing. You don't even understand what it is, and you still use it, and that's a problem. You have to figure out what the fuck it is, right? And it kind of sets that up, so I'm very excited to see where this goes. Then we have Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 2. Amazing, amazing work. I'm loving this series so much. I think that the creators are doing a great job at balancing both the Ninja Turtles and Naruto in a very succinct way. Like, it makes it very easy for you to understand where all of these characters come from without any problems. Like, I mean, I already know where both of the characters come from, right? Like, I understand both of these franchises to a relatively good level on both sides, right? But the way everything is explained feels very new person friendly in a way that is very exciting, because this means that this will be able to hit for everyone. It's not just going to be for fans of Naruto or fans of Ninja Turtles. There's going to be broader appeal based on the fact that these names are very recognizable individually, and hopefully together they're even more so, right? So we'll see. Then we have Justice League Unlimited number 3. This is very great. I love this. I just like the introduction of all of these other characters into the fold, and we finally get some development about what is going on here. This Inferno Club, or this Inferno Group, or whatever they're called, is actually just like this evil force. I can't remember exactly. I think it ties into the Omega symbol again, and to Darkseid, right? It has to do with kind of like the fact that Darkseid is now missing, and other things have to take in his spot in the pantheon of the world, basically. It's very cool. We have Wonder Woman number 17. Great stuff. I got this cover, and I also got the Frank Cho cover, and I really like it. I think it's great. I like that this really shows Sam Pierre's artistic ability, where all of these characters look different. They don't have same face syndrome. Donna and Wonder Woman look very similar because they're sisters, and then the other characters look significantly different, and you take into account, you know, their phenotypes and like the fact that they would look different, right? And I really like it. I think it's great. So yeah, the issue itself is pretty good. We get to see the Wonder Girls take on all of the Wonder Woman villains that the Monarch, or whatever his name was, what was his name? It's not the Monarch. The I don't know, the big bad guy, the hidden king of America, assembled to try to take down Wonder Woman, right? And they take on, I think her name's Titania or Giganta, something like that, and they take on the little short guy that looks like Farquaad, and the Steel Lady that's like a bird, and all of these characters. I can't remember their names, but very cool stuff, very, very enjoyable. I quite liked it a lot. I think it's great. And finally, Ultimate Spider-Man number 13. This is the best issue that I've read in this whole batch. I just really loved it. I think Mole Man and Kraven were very interesting. I like the introduction of the Savage Land. I love seeing Peter go up against velociraptors and dinosaurs, and I thought it was great. Very wonderful stuff. So overall, not much to say about this, to be honest, that I haven't said already in my review. I think it's great. So yeah, those are all of my single issues that are normal sized. I have a few other things that I want to talk about really quick, and then we'll move on to the manga here to finish off the video. So Let's see. I don't want to make this fall. Okay, good. So we have Penthouse Comics number 6. This is the end of the first year. Not much to say about this one. I mean, I think broadly speaking, the stories eventually did work for me, at least 3 of the 4. One story I just didn't like at all. The art style was good. I just don't like the storytelling. I think it's very weird and ridiculous in a way that isn't helpful or meaningful. And then the other 3 stories that I did enjoy had kind of odd endings. So one of the stories, Miss October, doesn't really have a bad ending or anything. It's just kind of like, okay, get on with it. Like, hurry up and finish up the story, right? So it finished up the second half, it finished up the second quarter of the story, but there's two more quarters of the story to go. The other 2 stories were kind of weird because initially I thought when this series started releasing that it was going to try to go for an angle of like inclusion and trying to kind of play up to the fact that, you know, we're trying to be diverse and stuff like that. And I thought that was fine, but maybe not the right move for a skin mag, right? Like, people aren't reading Penthouse to get moralistic advice, right? Or ethical advice, or to discuss the politics of the modern day. They're looking at Penthouse because they want boobs and ass and tits, right? And it wasn't feeling like they were getting it. And then as the stories progress, the kind of like social, political kind of aspects and the issues of like people of color that are being faced by the characters are turning more into kind of these weird revenge stories, or these kind of like things where it's like these characters that I initially thought were going to be heroes because they were these like minority groups in like a time period where these minority groups were very mistreated, ended up actually being the villains and then suffering horrific deaths, right? But there was some element of victory to them. And so it's very complex in a way that maybe also feels like torture porn, if that makes sense. And I'm not sure I like that. I mean, I enjoy the stories reading them, but if you look at the context of all of the works together in this coalition or this anthology, it feels like there's some really odd messaging here, and I'm not sure that I like that. So we'll have to see if that continues on to the next year, if they choose better stories. And the other thing I just want to mention again, I don't like that they use these like non-noir kind of things. Like, they use sci-fi and fantasy type covers all the time, and Penthouse Comics doesn't have any of that stuff in it. So don't use it for this, right? Like, that's for heavy metal. Penthouse should have pinup covers and kind of like guns and military and detectives and stuff like that. Not whatever this is, right? Like, whatever fantasy stuff this is, or science fiction stuff, I guess is what this would be. So that's just like kind of an annoyance on my part. And also, when they do interviews, they should do better, because their interviews are really, really boring. And the characters or the women that they choose to interview are not actually meaningful in any way. Like, they're like OnlyFans characters or streamers, or, well, I guess the lady that they chose for this issue is important because she's like a important member of the industry, but then they do a photo shoot with her, and then the photo shoot isn't even good. So it's like, okay, well, what the hell, man? What's going on here, right? So I don't know. It's just some thoughts on that. I will review that soon, and then I'll do a proper review of the whole first year of publication. So yeah, here we have Savage Sword of Conan number 6. Really great stuff. I actually really, really enjoyed it. I think that this was really well done. There's some issues with the printing and some of the choices. I would prefer that they used nicer, more like modern style comic book paper for this. I think that would be much better. The printing quality would be higher. The fidelity of the art would be better and stuff like that. But they're choosing to go with this. They're going to stick with this. It is what it is. It's not so overpriced for what I'm getting that I'm upset about it, or anything like that. It's very accessible. It's very enjoyable. I just have some issues with the quality of the physical object, more so than the quality of the artwork or the writing or anything like that. So those issues are gonna go unanswered, so really there's no point in me complaining about them anymore. But I really enjoy myself reading this, so I'm not gonna stop collecting it, even though I do have some issues with, the fact that it's this nasty old newsprint paper instead of like good high quality paper that they use for normal comic books all the time. So yeah, it is what it is, but overall very good stuff. I did a review for it on my other channel, so check it out over there. Not gonna say much more about that here. Then we have some other stuff related to Conan. So last night I reread through all of the Battle of the Blackstone stuff. So here we have Conan number 0, Free Comic Book Day for last year, 2024. Then we have issue 1 of Battle of the Blackstone. Issue 2 with probably the coolest cover. Issue 3. And finally issue 4, as well as the Savage Sword of Conan issue that relates to that. And so I kind of have them all out of their bags and boards because I need to actually go through this whole thing after having read it and organize it properly, because the way that the story is told is with a lot of flashbacks and a lot of jumping forth back and forth between time, right? And so I have to organize it in a much more succinct way so that when I describe it, it doesn't sound like I'm crazy, right? So we'll see how that goes. But great stuff. If you have not read any of the modern Conan stuff, I recommend you just start with this. I think it'll be very interesting and cool, and it'll introduce you to a lot of different characters. But you really should go back and read everything that is being published for Conan right now. I think it's easy to collect it through the trades. The first 3 trades are out. The Battle of the Blackstone trade should be coming out soon, although it will not include the Savage Sword of Conan stuff, as far as I remember. So, you know, if you want to read the whole Battle of the Blackstone, you should track down an issue of this. So, yeah, not much to say about that since I am going to review it soon. Let's move on to the final 2 bits of comic book stuff here, and then we'll move on to the manga. So we have Twig by Scotty Young and Kyle Strom, and this was fun. It was really enjoyable. It was very comfy, very enjoyable to read in the sense that it was very relaxing. It was very simple, and the artwork is pretty cute, broadly speaking, although there are sometimes it's very ugly looking, very horrific. And it's just about this little guy whose name is Twig, who has to go on an adventure against his will. So he tries to refuse a call, but he can't, and so he has to go on this journey to place a special gem in a special place, because his job is to make sure that the MacGuffin that the heroes of the world need to find is in the right place at the right time. And so he goes through this thing, but as he's starting the journey, the gem breaks and he needs to fix it. And so in order to fix it, he actually goes on a real life world-saving quest, right? To get it fixed. And so he finally does. And then he eventually goes to place the stone in the place that it's supposed to be. And they go off happy, knowing that they made sure that the hero would get his MacGuffin. And I think it's really cute and very enjoyable. There are some kind of problems, I guess you could say, I have with this, which is the pace is insanely fast. Like, it was very, very quick. And I would like that to be just a tiny bit slower. Sorry, I was going to say faster. I meant slower, because I would have liked to see more time to understand the world in which Twig takes place. Is it necessary? No, not really. But it would have been very nice to see, right? So, yeah, that's really all I have to say about that. I mean, I'm going to do a review for this, or actually I already recorded it. I just haven't uploaded it yet. And hopefully you guys check it out. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Twig. And finally, I started reading Dragonero, or I guess, yeah, there's no really other way to say this, right? But very cool, very interesting. It has a very Conan and Lord of the Rings vibe, which is kind of odd. It's a bit of a weird mixture, but basically, at least what I've read so far, 20 pages of it out of 300. The story is that this world here, named Rondar, is kind of slowly going to fall into disarray soon. And the reason is because of governmental ineptitude. So we have this character who's an old wizard show up to this edge of the world, this kind of giant wall at the edge of this kingdom's control, and meet with this woman called the Technocrat. And so the wizard and the woman use their respective abilities, magic in his case and engineering in hers, to see beyond the limits of their visual acuity, right? Beyond their eyes. And they see this dark spire break, and from it something comes out. And this something looks kind of like a horse, kind of like a morph from Alien. I hope that you can see it there. And so as the characters kind of discuss, you know, the falling of the spear or the spire, this monster moves across the land. And so that's basically all I read so far, but it's very, very interesting and important. And I've quite liked it so far. I like the artwork. I think it's cool. I can't wait to get more about it. Dragon Arrow is actually this character, and so far we've only been introduced to this character. So I'm very excited to see where this goes. So I'll probably continue reading this tonight, and if I don't finish it by tonight, I'll probably continue to read it through February. So we'll see how that goes. But that's it for the comic books. Let's get into the manga here. And so actually, before we get into the manga, I did want to talk about some magazines that I read this month. So I read The Den of Geek. This should have actually been in the film section of this video, but I forgot about it until now. Pretty cool. You can get this for free from comic book stores. You don't have to pay for it, but it's unlikely that all comic book stores will have it. So you should ask them if they do, and maybe they can get it ordered for you so that you can get a free copy of this. But you should be able to at least read the articles online from their website if you want to do that instead. I just like the idea of physical media regardless of, you know, what it is, so that's why I had this. But overall it was pretty good. I like certain you know, essays here. So I enjoyed the essay about Creature Commandos and the one about the War of the Rohirrim, and I like the one about Skeleton Crew. Otherwise, I thought that some of the articles were really not for me, right? I mean, I'm not interested in Squid Game, so I didn't read that one. I'm not interested in Paddington, so I didn't care about that one either. And there's stuff like Silo and Mikey 17. That's you know, stuff I'm interested in, but I haven't watched it yet, so I'd rather wait until I do before reading articles about them. So that was basically it for that one. I also ended up reading Otaku USA, and I actually bought a new edition of this already. So here's a winter 2025 one, and this is the fall 2024. So this is actually one after the other, right? I think there might have been another one, which would have been the one with the Kaiju number 8 cover. But broadly speaking, these are great. I actually really enjoy them. I think that you can read these articles on the website, but I don't think they're the same because these are quite long articles sometimes. So in Anime USA, the Dan to Dan article was quite good. I actually really enjoyed it. They have some, you know, reviews for different manga here and there. Although they're kind of out of date by the time that you get your hands on it, right? There was also this review about the new Precure title, which is interesting because I don't know anything about Precure, so it was nice to learn about it. They had a nice review of Delicious in Dungeon. They had a great introduction to Undead Unluck and Mission Yakuzura family, right? And they talked about Fable and Pokemon Concierge and all of these different things, Junji Ito's Uzumaki. I didn't read those because I don't care about those, but I did appreciate that they were included. We have Joseph Luster talk about Dan to Dan. Nothing interesting that I didn't know already, but it was nice to read someone else's thoughts, right? Because sometimes YouTubers kind of all say the same stuff, right? Myself included. And then we had this article here about this kind of like Gundam type series that's like yaoi, I think, which is pretty cool. And then this beautiful article on Laid Back Camp, which is pretty good. I think I need to check the series out because it seems really, really fun and really wholesome. And yeah, so that was it for the fall 2024. In the winter 2025, we had Zom 100, the No Longer Human Isekai, Makeni, Too Many Losing Heroines, which is pretty interesting sounding. And of course, we have some stuff about Godzilla at this point, I think. I can't remember why. And this article about Mayonaka Punch, which is this interesting combination of a supernatural character, in this case a vampire, and these very loser streamer girls. And I think that sounds really, really fun. There's also a huge collection of of manga reviews here, which I thought was pretty cool because they're kind of things that you don't see on YouTube all the time. Monster Marriage Shop, Dark Souls Redemption, My Name is Zero, Thunder 3, Go Ghost, and Oh My Atami-kun and stuff like that. It was very interesting to see some of these reviews, so I'm quite happy about that. I think that for $8, you get a shit ton of content here. A lot of great stuff, a lot of stuff that will help you kind of figure out what to watch and read next, and I really appreciate that. I think it's cool. So yeah, you can also sign up for their newsletter and get some stuff out of it. And also, one of the cool things about this is that every one of these issues that isn't the Anime USA one has some manga previews in it as well. Basically 30 pages of each manga that it showcases, and it has 2 usually. So overall, very cool stuff. Very happy about this. I'm definitely going to buy a subscription for this and just have at least a year of it at some point. So overall, very cool stuff. I really recommend you guys check that out. They sell them at Walmart, at Target, Half Price Books, sorry, not Half Price Books, that have Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and other kind of bookshops like that. It's usually in the magazine section. So yeah, finally, let's get into the manga here. So we have, let's see, in order, and then by series. So we have Blue Lock 16. Awesome stuff. I love this series so much. This is midway through the U20 arc, right? We get to see Oliver Aiku's backstory, why he is the way he is. Apparently, he used to be a striker, but he was confined to Japan's tendency to be a team player, and so he felt unhappy with his lot in life as a striker. He decided to become the best defense in the world, and now that he's fighting against the Blue Lock players, his desire to be a striker, to be significant and individual, is awakening again, and he's very excited about this, and it's very, very cool. I like it a lot. Then we have Welcome to Demon School Iruma-kun, books 2 and 3. This is really fun. Very enjoyable the way that Osama Nishi manages to make very mundane kind of high school stuff into very interesting kind of concepts, right? So this issue focuses mostly on a giant dodgeball arc where Iruma needs to fight in this dodgeball tournament in order to rank up. And he gets a lot of help from this lady character here, who is the leader of the student council, because she realizes that he is human, although she can't figure out if that's true or not. She thinks she knows, and he can read the sacred text, the ancient text, the dark text, which are actually just manga, very cutesy shoujo manga. And Iruma reads them to her, and so they become friends. And throughout their conversations, she realizes that Iruma-kun has no desires for himself, and so she guides them to get some, because every good demon should strive for something, right? And so he strives to rank up, and so he tries really hard, and it was really great. I really loved it. And this one is about joining clubs, which club they want to join and stuff. And it was really cute. I really loved it. I think ultimately the club that Iruma and company join is great. And I like it a lot because it really works to highlight these kind of disparities that occur in the demon world, that Iruma doesn't fall under because his grandfather is so powerful that he doesn't really have to feel them, but that he would otherwise. And I think it's really interesting to see him become friends with this character who's so low on the totem pole, and then help him gain more, right? And then the thing is that at the end of that issue, or at the end of that chapter, at the end of the volume, sorry, we get this reveal that maybe things aren't the way they seem, and it was awesome. I really, really liked it. I can't wait to get more of it. So yeah, then we have Dinosaur Sanctuary number 5. This was awesome. I really empathize with what's going on in this book because it's very difficult. So one of the characters, or one of the dinosaurs, suddenly fell over and is weak, and one of their legs isn't working properly. And when they figure out what it is, it turns out that it's cancer. The thing is that there is like a very safe way of removing it, which is cutting off its leg, and then this damages the dinosaur for the rest of their life, because now they won't have the best quality of life, right? Because they'll have to deal with prosthetic legs. And there is a riskier procedure that doesn't guarantee that the dinosaur continues to live, but that could actually give the dinosaur a better quality of life overall, right? And so the doctor character has to deal with this. Like, what is the right move? And he does this because our main character, Susume, forces him to deal with this fact, right? That maybe there is a different option. Maybe there is a way for her to continue to live her best life. even if it is slightly more dangerous, right? So I think it's cool, very interesting. Steel Celestial Shadows. This is ramping up to be very, very interesting. I love the backstory that we get introduced to here with this little kid character here, who is the current leader of the gifted across Japan. And the reason that he is because his bloodline power, or whatever his giftedness is insanely powerful. And he initially was too scared to deal with it. And then when he wasn't scared anymore, he was overtaken by a god or something. And it's very cool to see how this is going. I really like it. I can't wait to learn more about this character. And book 5 did come out recently. I just have not had a chance to get it. And hopefully I'll get it as soon as possible. So yeah, overall, very, very good stuff there. And then we have Tenkaichi number 1. This is another Record of Ragnarok clone, although this one is Japanese historical figures, whereas Record of Ragnarok is all of humanity's figures, and War of the Greedy Witches is important women across history, right? This one is all about Japanese historical figures. The first battle is between Hondo Tadakatsu and Miyamoto Musashi, who is a vagabond, right? And there's going to be other characters. There's William Adams, there's Yusuke, there's Oda Nobunaga, although he is the reason why the Tenkaichi is happening. And it's very cool stuff. I did a review for it already, so give it a go. And here we have Reservin, which is a fantasy, dark fantasy manga, similar to Berserk, or something maybe more like The Witcher, or like, what's the girl version of Berserk that was on Shonen Jump? Claymore, right? It's kind of like that. Our character is a king, and his daughter is his companion, and so it's just like lone wolf and cub kind of thing. And the daughter doesn't remember that her dad is the king, or doesn't remember that this guy is her dad, because she gave up all of her memories of him in order to save herself and him from this giant dark dragon at the beginning of the story. And so this character has to deal with this girl that doesn't trust him, that he has deep emotion for, and also with the fact that his kingdom has just fallen. He is destitute and powerless, and he has to find a way to regain all of that, and also create new meaningful memories with his daughter, so that she at least has one of her parents still, because her mother died in the attack that created the situation where she lost her memories, right? So very cool stuff. The artwork is phenomenal. The storytelling is good, and I can't wait for more of it. So yeah, it's a really slow release though. I think in Mexico they only have the first 2 volumes out already, which has been kind of a year in the making. So hopefully I'll be able to get that volume when I go to Mexico now, here soon in the next couple months, I guess. And by then, hopefully, they also have volume 3. That would be really nice. So, yeah, those are all of my thoughts on all of the things that I consumed this month. Let me know what you thought. What have you read or watched this month that was really, really exciting and awesome? Let me know that in the comments. And thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.